What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and I hope everybody had a safe and happy new year, but it is 2023. It is time for some new stuff, some new things happening here on the channel that we'll get to eventually. Number one, our Lazy Susan, the big reveal. Midwinter's Night Drams for today's review. We're going to try this out. We're going to see how it falls, price, taste, drinkability. You know the rules. Everybody knows. Before we get started, though, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. Gonna be good. Kind of hoping that reveal was cool, but it was probably underwhelming. Here we go, though, a Midwinter's Night Dram. This is Act 10. Mine happens to be Scene 2. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is from High West Distillery out of Utah. This is their Rendezvous Rye, which they then finished in port barrels. This is the second year that I've had an opportunity to buy it. I was supposed to get Act 8, but I didn't really know about it at the time. This is obviously Act 10. They also put out another release called the Encore this year, which was distillery only pickup. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a blend of two different ryes. One of the ryes in this, they're distilling themselves. That's an 80% rye, 20% malted barley mash bill. They also source from Ross and Squibb, or MGP, whatever you want to call it. They're 95.5 rye, and I believe before they started distilling their own product, they sourced some of this from Barton Distillery. I don't know when they made the switch to stop using Barton and start using their own distillate, and I also don't know how much of this is MGP and how much of this is their own, but obviously when they switched from Barton to their own, it probably dropped in age. Again, I don't know when that started, so I don't know how old this product is as well, but let's get into it. You know the rules: price, taste, drinkability. So when it comes to drinkability on this bottle, this is coming in at 98.6 proof, the perfect body temperature. Actually, I believe they changed that a few years ago. I believe they raised it a little bit, but you get the point. 98.6 proof, nothing crazy, nothing overwhelming. This is a high rye, obviously. We already talked 95.5 rye as well as an 80% rye, so I do expect a little bit of spice when it comes to that. I also expect the port barrel finish to tone that down just a little bit. So let's take another sip of this and see what we think on drinkability. We're going to need more, I can tell you that. Now that the glass is empty, you can still see the legs running down. Absolutely beautiful. But when it comes to drinkability on this, very easy to drink. I didn't expect anything too overwhelming at 98.6 proof. But again, that rye can kind of throw you off once in a while. I think that there's a lot more rye spice on this than anything when it comes to an actual ethanol content. So I'm going to give this a pretty good score on drinkability. Let's take one more sip. Yeah, I gotta say, it's super easy to drink. Nothing overwhelming about this when it comes to the ethanol content. I usually start at an 8 if it drinks right at its proof. I don't think this drinks at 98.6 proof. I probably blind this at like 90 proof. So again, nothing crazy underwhelming, but also nothing overwhelming when it comes to the drinkability on this. Let's give it like a 8.65 when it comes to drinkability on this. And as you know, up next, we're going to get a taste on this. And the best thing about this bottle is it tells you exactly what you're supposed to be tasting. The rye forms a beautiful base of vanilla, caramel, and cinnamon. Is this supposed to be caramel or caramel? You guys let me know in the comment section below. While the port barrels provide notes of plum, dried fruit, and spice, like a proper holiday plum pudding. I don't know if I get plum pudding on this. We'll save that for the professionals. But you definitely get a good fruit note on this. You get that spice from the rye on this. The vanilla and caramel absolutely stand out. It's one of those roller coaster rides that I absolutely love. The spice from the rye, the sweetness from the port barrel finish, it all comes together so well in this. I gotta take another sip and we'll find out what its score is gonna be. I don't know what it is about a finished rye that I enjoy much more than a finished bourbon. I think the spiciness of the rye just usually blends so much better with whatever you're finishing in, because you're usually finishing in something sweet. Rum casks, Madeira casks, wine casks, whatever it happens to be is usually super sugary, super sweet. So when you have that spiciness of that rye mixed with whatever you're finishing with, it just seems to work for me. Again, I don't like double oaked too often. There's a few that stand out, but at the end of the day, rye finishes in sweet barrels seems to be my sweet spot. For me personally, I'm not really getting plum as much as I'm getting like blackberry and blueberry, but I've been eating a lot of those lately, so maybe my palate's just acclimated to those flavor profiles. But listen, this is literally Christmas in a bottle right here. I think I either got this the week before Christmas or the week between Christmas and New Year's. I can't really remember. It's supposed to be released in fall. It's absolutely a fall drink. Everything from the bottle, which we're going to talk about during the Bourbon Bomb of the Week, down to the flavor profile just works for this time of the year. A high rye is what you want, sitting by the fire, everything like that. One more sip. Let's give this a score when it comes to taste. I forget where I put Act 9 when it came to taste, but I will say this: as my years progress throughout this hobby, things change. I'm sure if you're doing this as well, you start to notice, you start to enjoy things that maybe you didn't enjoy at the beginning. A rye, a finished rye, a port barrel finished rye is something that I would have no business drinking when I first got into this hobby, but now I absolutely love it. We're going to put it in the 9s. I'm going to say 9.17 when it comes to taste on this. That's 2 glasses finished in 1 review, but we're going to pour up just a little bit more as we get into price on this. Price on this bottle is where things get a little dicey. I believe, if I remember correctly, last year these bottles were $100. This year I walk into the store, $150 for this bottle, and I don't know if I like that or if I hate it. Now here's the deal. I believe these bottles started when they first released 10 years ago at $100. They were always a limited release, but the bourbon industry obviously blew up within those 10 years. So at $100, this seemed like a pretty high price point at the beginning, especially when finished ryes weren't really a big thing at the time. But yet, as this gained a cult following, as people loved to enjoy this just a little bit more and they kept releasing this, and the bourbon/rye industry blew up, that $100 price point didn't seem that bad. But yet, when you jump it from 100 to 150 all in 1 year, that's where things get a little dicey. We saw this with Booker's. They went from 60 or 40 to 60 to $100 in just the span of a few years. This going from 100 to 150, I don't like it a lot, especially over 1 year. I wish they would have spanned that out, maybe $5-10 a year to get it up to that $150 price point. But I will say this. It's a damn good whiskey, and I don't think $150 is out of the question for this limited release from High West, even though it's probably a little bit younger than when they sourced it from Barton. But at the end of the day, we're talking limited release, we're talking a great bottle, we're talking cult following. $150 isn't a bad price. I'm just mad about the jump. Let's take 1 sip and we'll give it a score when it comes to price. Because of the high price jump, I think I'm going to average this out, right? If this was $100 still, it would easily be high 8s, low 9s. $150, if they raised it over the next couple of years, would probably stay in that range. But doing it all in 1 year irks me just a little bit. So I'm going to drop it a couple of points. I'm going to do it like mid 8s. Let's say like an 8.52 when it comes to price on this. But listen, while I add these scores up, let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn a little bit more about this bottle right here. Literally. So before we talk about the actual physical bottle here, I do want to tell you a couple of things in case you're new to the Midwinter's Night Dram world. Act is the year that they put out. So it's Act 10. It's the 10th year that they've done this. A lot of people wonder about this scene. So mine says scene 2. This is just a bottling run. If I'm correct, they hand bottle every single one of these batches. So basically they do different runs. They clean everything out. They'll do a different run. It's the same whiskey. This just happens to be the second run that they did on this particular batch. The next thing about this bottle before we talk about the actual physical bottle, it says here on the back, "Are you sure that we are awake? It seems to me that yet we sleep, we dream," which is a quote from, you guessed it, A Midsummer Night's Dream. The thing is, this is Act 10. There's only 5 acts in A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. Not that it matters. They're obviously going to continue with this. But let me tell you a quick story about this bottle that I found on Reddit. So 7 years ago on the Bourbon Reddit page, a gentleman named David Perkins came on and did an AMA and Ask Me Anything. He's not with them anymore. I do believe he's with this company, Keeper's Heart, which I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of the distillery, but I believe he's with them now. But at the time, he was the founder of High West Distillery, and he went on and somebody asked him about the bottles at the time and how they got their actual form. He goes on to answer this question by referencing a movie where Clint Eastwood rips the cork out of a bottle of whiskey before drinking straight from the bottle. And he actually says if anybody can find that scene where Clint Eastwood does it, because he can't seem to find it, he will send them 6 bottles of whiskey. Now, I don't know if anybody ever found that scene or if he ever held up his end of the bargain. It's just cool to see this on our bourbon from 7 years ago. This guy has obviously moved on from this particular distillery, but that's where the inspiration from this bottle came from. Interesting fact if you ask me, but let's go back over and see what this bottle scored. But hey, if you've made it this far in this video, make sure you click that like and that subscribe button. And listen, I might try and go find that scene just so I can send it to him. Maybe he'll still send me 6 bottles of whiskey. But this bottle came in at an 8.78. Not a bad spot for it at all. I think it's definitely above average. It's great for this time of the year. I always look forward to this release from now on. If it stays that $150 price point for the next couple of years, I won't be as mad about it. I do think that hurt it this year, but we'll see what happens going forward. But hey, in the meantime, make sure you check me out on Instagram. Go click that follow button over there. We also have a Patreon page that we're trying to grow here coming into 2023. Go check it out. If you have any questions about it, come into Discord, talk to me or any one of my Patreons in our Discord about it. We can verify how good it is. Make sure you click that link in the description below to that Discord so you can join that. Make sure you don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. Christmas.